Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Escobedo, and joining me today on the show is Damien Wong, who is the Vice President, Asia Pacific at Confluent. So thanks so much for joining me today, Damien.
Thanks, Joe, for having me on your show.
So, you guys have, been experiencing rapid growth lately, and today I think on the show we're on a couple different things. One of which is the customer success program that you guys have developed. Another is the processes and shift you've made from going from large one-off transactions to a SaaS model. And then finally, how you've been able to grow the business through channel partners, system integrators. But first off, can you tell us a little bit more about the success you guys have been having recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe for those who are not familiar with Confluent provides a complete event streaming platform based off the Apache Kafka, project, and I think that we've seen our company grow in line with the adoption of Apache Kafka, as well as this whole paradigm shift in the industry from a very traditional batch-based environment to one that focuses on real time, right? Real time everything. So having said that, we see that with that rapid adoption of digital technologies and digitalization happening in a big way, and I think the events around the world that we're seeing today have accelerated a lot of digitalization initiatives. Along with that comes that adoption of the event streaming paradigms and technologies like Kafka. And that's where Confluent comes in, right? We help enterprises embrace, Kafka, embrace event streaming by providing some of the key capabilities that help them consume this technology with peace of mind, right? Security, reliability, performance of the technologies that those are all the attributes that an enterprise will expect for such a mission critical capability such as the event streaming platform.
No, I think it's good context for everyone. Now, last time we spoke, you talked about the evolution of the company from a one-off, a large-scale transactions. A lot of it was inbound. A lot of your early adopters, to a shift to a SaaS model and more of an outbound approach. So can you tell us a little bit more about that approach and what were some of the key learnings from that?
Yeah, and that's an interesting observation because obviously what we've done and we continue to do is that we work with large organizations with helping them embrace Kafka and embrace Confluent. So that is when we're talking about a world where we have people self-managing that infrastructure. Perhaps it could be on-premise on their data centers, or it could be in a public cloud infrastructure. And I think that continues to be a very important go-to-market motion. But alongside that, we've developed our cloud offering. So we have Confluent Cloud now, which is a fully managed offering. And this is something that complements what we're doing with the Confluent platform, which is much more of a self-managed offering that we have. Now, with the introduction of Confluent Cloud, which also brings with it some of the attributes of public cloud consumption that many enterprises are starting to get used to with other SaaS offerings, software as a service offerings, we start to then see that the friction required or the friction that is encountered when an organization wants to try out a new technology, those barriers to entry actually drop, right? So that introduces with it much more of a volume and velocity type sales motion. And I think from a partner ecosystem standpoint, obviously that allows us to engage with different ecosystem partners in different ways, right? Traditionally we would work more with system integrator partners, and rightfully so, because these system integrator partners would bring in digital transformation initiatives that would involve our technology. And those system integrator partners will also continue to work with us because many of their clients are looking at not just doing this on-premise in a self-managed way, but perhaps doing in a hybrid or a multi-cloud way. So us being now available in the marketplaces of major cloud players like AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud allows them the flexibility of not just deploying this on-premise or with a single public cloud player, but with a choice of multiple cloud players. So, we then have to work closely with the ecosystems of our cloud partners as well. And I think that's a great thing. It gives our customers more choice, but it also allows us to engage with a wider cross section of the industry's ecosystem.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. And a lot of tech companies we've worked with have actually grown the business through the channel partners and system integrators. But I guess what are some of the big challenges? So, for example, one of the sessions we had recently is one of the participants asked, they have clients at different levels of sophistication in terms of digital. So how do you break that up into different educational programs or partnership programs that it can appeal to the different levels of sophistication? I'm not sure if you've encountered anything like that previously or currently in your role.
Yeah, well, I think everybody, and this is a great question, Joe, because if you think about it, right, every organization is different in some way, shape, or form, right? And we don't think that everybody is, it looks exactly the same from our perspective. Different organizations will be at different stages in that maturity of adoption of event streaming. So we do have a maturity model that allows us to map where an organization is relative to where they might want to be or where others in their peer group are currently today. So it's a 5-stage maturity model, and our partners, we bring them into that whole framework as well, because we want them to understand how we can relate to a customer based on their maturity levels of event streaming. So for example, if we're working with an enterprise and an SI or a channel partner, with someone who's actually just starting out in this journey, right? Maybe just doing some proof of concepts and pilots, nothing in production as yet. That could be a stage 1 or a stage 2 in terms of maturity level. And we would then obviously work with the clients of these systems integrators to understand, hey, look, where is this going to take you, right? What do you see yourself? What do you see good looking like for you from an event streaming perspective? And we can share with them some of the attributes, then talk to them about how we could take them through this journey from where they are to where they need to be. And we obviously will do this in conjunction with some of our partners. Through that process, obviously, they will need to consider the different attributes, right? Of what success is like from a process standpoint, a technology standpoint, and then a people or change management and skills standpoint. So training would be a consideration, right? Enabling people to get trained. So we do work with training partners for that. We also do have, the processes that need to be perhaps changed in terms of how, they are currently doing certain processes. So for example, as a financial institution, they are looking at, loan originations, and maybe they're trying to introduce real-time capabilities into the loan origination process. So maybe instead of waiting for a week before you give someone an answer of whether their loan is approved, could be done instantaneously, right, or in near real time with what we do. So I think those are things that will involve, organizations that have good domain expertise, understand what the challenges of a customer would be across that whole, specific domain process, and then being able to advise how they could improve it, and how the technology then is able to support them in doing so. So in summary, yes, we do have frameworks that allow our partners to collaborate with us to map where customers are, where they need to be, how to get there, and then correspondingly how partners can work with us to do this even better. Yeah.
I love what you said about kind of defining the shared vision and helping them across that entire journey. Going back to, once again, the maturity model, which I love as well. Is it all manually done right now? For example, is there someone on your side going through, like I have a checklist and saying, okay, this person fits into stage 1 or stage 2? Or is it automated? For example, is there like a back-end quiz or kind of a form that they fill out, and then based on their score, it'll put them in a particular stage?
Yeah, so typically what we do is that we would have a set of questions that we would ask to determine someone is in a particular stage. So it's not a hard science per se. You know, obviously we do have guidelines that tell us what the attributes of organizations in these respective stages of maturity would look like, and then you know it would give the organization a good sense of where they would place themselves, right? You know, obviously there's a level of self-assessment involved in this, right? You want to, you know, look at it and say, hey, look, you know, do I meet these criteria or these attributes? And if I do, then it looks like maybe I'm in stage 2 or in stage 3 today. And that too is not really a scorecard per se, right? It's not meant to say, hey, look, I'm perfect, I'm great or anything. It's just a diagnostic tool to kind of say, hey, look, you know, this is where I am today. And you know, do I want to move to a stage 3 or stage 4 or even a stage 5, where we determine that someone has actually gotten event streaming as their central nervous system for the organization, right? You know, everything they do is in real time. So I think that's where we don't also prescribe that being a stage 5 is the right stage for every organization to land at, because it just might not be, right. They might want to be at a stage 3 or stage 4, and it could be a perfectly acceptable stage at which they want to move towards. So what we do know is that the tools are there, the templates and the expertise is there to assess if someone is at a certain stage of maturity. But more importantly, Joe, it's really about how do we get them to where they would like to be, right? You know, and obviously they see external parties, their peers, you know, folks that they regard as maybe best practice type organizations, doing certain things that they feel they should also be doing. So that's where organizations who have those aspirations would say, look, you know, I mean, I want to get there, but what exactly does getting there entail, right? You know, how do I get there? So this kind of explains to them that from the event streaming perspective, this is what those organizations are doing, and you know, and this is how, if you wanted to get there, this is what you may want to focus on. So it gives them a roadmap, right? You know, of how they can get to a desired destination, instead of just you know, I guess not having a more prescriptive, a more defined way of getting to their target destination.
Mm. No, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of times the companies struggle with what does success or winning look like for my organization. So I love the fact that you put together best practices, maybe examples from the top brands, to show them maybe an inspirational kind of path they could potentially take, and then obviously speak with them in terms of does it make sense or not for their business, their resources, team, etc. So I guess the question is, once you have helped them define that success, what that looks like, what are some of the processes or some of the milestones you take in terms of that path to success for them?
Yeah, so you know, I think success is also defined by the journey that we help our customers go on, and that's why we have a transition from towards a much more holistic end-to-end customer success program, right? You know, we want customers not to just come on board, but we want them to be rapidly adopting the technology, expanding the use of the technology, and then, you know, getting value out of the technology that they have. So that's really our ambition, and to do that, I think one of the things that we are also trying to put into place is a much more customer lifecycle focus customer success program, right? You know, so we are in process of hiring customer success managers that are able to take those customers on that journey. And I think that's really a big shift for us, because we do realize that when you go from being, you know, I guess a primarily on-premise self-managed type offering to one where we going into a software as a service type environment, success in software as a service type companies is defined by, whether a customer is able to adopt your technology and expand its usage rapidly, right? Because it's a win-win situation. If a customer gets value, they expand their usage, it obviously entails more consumption of your services, and that then provides more engagement, a bigger commercial relationship between both organizations. So it's a shift away from a one-time event, which is perhaps a supplier selling something to a customer and then maybe standing it up, to one where it is imperative for a supplier to continuously add value, make sure that the technology is relevant, make sure that the company is able to consume more and consume it easily, so that they will eventually want to do more and more business together. So I think that shift there is definitely a big shift. It's a win-win in my view, because it focuses on customer success a lot more than what a traditional license business would focus on.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think we work with a lot of different tech companies, and when they start the business, it's an 80-20 split. So it's 80% when they start the businesses is high touch, very customized kind of support and training for very large size clients. And then they're eventually, as the company grows, they realize that that's not sustainable, so they shift the model more towards maybe 20% high touch, but they're only their top 20 or 30 clients. And then the rest of that is the high volume and velocity that you talked about. So what are some of the things you guys are doing in the volume and velocity side to make sure that the customer success program is right for those guys?
Yeah, and that's again a very good question, Joe, because that's a big consideration when we are trying to scale the business, especially with volume and velocity. So you are right. There is a very strong need for high-touch customer success, customer service at the top end of our enterprise segments, right? And it's white glove service. It's very customized and personalized, and that's going to continue because obviously they're very complex organizations with different stakeholders across a myriad of functions and different use cases, right? So I think those necessitate a high-touch customer success management model. Mm-hmm. Whereas as you start to look at organizations perhaps in the mid-market and maybe in a small and medium-sized business category, those may have less complex use cases, and perhaps in terms of the number of stakeholders you are engaging with, it's not as many as you would have in the higher end of the enterprise segment. So for those, we obviously have, the consideration of having a lower touch customer success model, where there is part of that engagement being done via automated channels, but also part of it being done through customer success managers. And then at the very low end, I mean, what we don't want to have is no touch, right, at all. So there needs to at least be that level of automation, that level of support that's made accessible to a customer that is even at the entry levels, because you do want them to feel like they are being onboarded successfully, that they are being supported through that journey, and as they grow, we can grow with them as well. So it could be just making sure that when you have a new customer, that there is automation in the process of onboarding an SMB customer. It could be just being able to take them through a set of automated processes that helps them to understand what the technology is about, what the offerings are, to help them guide them through their journey, and let them know that if they need help, where they can get access to that to that help in order for them to be successful. So I would say that you've definitely hit the nail on the head, that we have to tailor our customer success programs to be able to support the different needs of the different segments, right? It cannot be a one size fits all, because that's not scalable. But at the same time, it cannot be let's just focus on the top customers and ignore the rest. That is also not healthy from an overall customer adoption and success perspective. So it's got to be a balance between a high touch model that is suited for high touch accounts, and then a lower touch model for some of the other accounts.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. And for you mentioned a lot of processes for the mid and low tier. What are some of the processes channels? Is it like an automated newsletter do you guys send out? Is it like webinars? What are some of the things that you guys do? Just so we have some tactical tips here.
Yeah, well, obviously automation is a big thing, right? And the creation of reusable assets is another big thing, right? When you want to do scale, I guess there are two things that you want to focus on. One is the fact that you need to have some form of reusability in the assets. A level of personalization that you can apply to those assets, nonetheless. But it's got to be reusable assets. But at the same time, you also have that perspective of working with and through partners, because if in reality there's just no way that any organization can scale without the help of partners, right? Partners introduce that element of scale that an organization in and of itself would not be able to achieve. So those are two considerations that we'd have, right? Just the continued creation of reusable assets and capabilities that would tailor those assets more to, in an automated fashion to specific customers and specific segments. And then obviously working with partners to service those segments that, with a little bit more scale that the partners can provide. Yeah.
I think that makes perfect sense. So in terms of reusable assets, are we talking about things like, case studies or use case studies, FAQs, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Case studies, videos, white papers, reference architectures. So there's a whole host of assets that are made available, right? So if you're a new customer, I think even if you have a very modest initial relationship with us, we want you to be able to still understand, hey, look, we want you to feel welcome. We want you to be able to go into the system and understand, how do I come on board? Videos will share with you what those are, then being able to then go through assets that tell you, or links to assets and tell you where and how you will get access to all these. So, those are ways that we obviously would want to introduce a level of self-service and self-sufficiency in terms of that. Then, as the relationship grows, obviously the needs might be evolving and might be a little bit more complex, but then as the commercial relationship grows overall, that then obviously allows a commercially and financially the ability for a company like ourselves to then service these customers with a little bit more of a higher touch model. Yeah.
Okay, I think it makes perfect sense. Now, a lot of the stuff, I guess, is a shift from, you have the onboarding period, which is usually 3 to 6 months, depending on the technology. And then I guess where most tech companies really fall off is post the onboarding. So I think I'd love to find out kind of your approach for post onboarding. Mm-hmm. How do you still keep the customer engaged? How do you still educate them, but in a way that kind of, is the next level beyond just onboarding?
Yeah. So, again, that's where putting into place automation to alert you to various important metrics is going to be important, right? So there's an element of AI and data analytics, and the fact that you have real-time notifications that tell you, hey, look, someone is not consuming your technology, has not, consuming your technology, or hasn't reached a certain level of consumption of technology by a certain period of time. But you don't want to wait for the, to find out, right at the very last minute. Say 11 months into the relationship of a 12-month subscription, you find out actually the guy hasn't consumed your technology in the last 11 months. And then you start to talk to them in month 11. That's probably a little bit too late. You want to kind of know upfront that, hey, look, this customer, for example, signed up at this date, and after 2 weeks, they haven't onboarded. Maybe they haven't accessed the portals. They haven't consumed the technology. So you want to have notifications there, which perhaps at the low end would then just send reminders to folks, to the customer that says, hey, look, you haven't touched this in this while, is there anything we can help you? Maybe just is a link to, the onboarding video that will help you get kick-started. Or midway through the relationship, obviously there might be other metrics that you might get alerted to,
Mhm.
and you want this to be as automated as possible, so that someone like an account executive or customer success manager would be able to get alerted and then be able to reach out proactively to a customer before it becomes a customer satisfaction issue, right? And I think that's really where technology can play a part in helping that onboarding and adoption and expansion process continue, because you do want to understand that there are certain metrics that are relevant at certain points in time of that relationship, which folks would want to be able to respond to and to act upon. Yeah.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. And the way I always think about it is like a mountain. You want to make sure that they're making progress up the mountain. A lot of times you have people like you said who haven't even started their climb yet. But at each point of climb, there are different milestones and metrics. And I love the way you guys do notifications as a way to show them, okay, here's how far you made it up the mountain. Here's how far we have to go until we hit a particular KPI. And also, tracking that on the back end, the technology, the customer success or the team can align and say, okay, we've noticed you're only at here. We should be at this point in the climb. So let me provide some research.
Absolutely. I love the analogy. I think that's it's a great analogy. I think can think of it like climbing Mount Everest, right? Getting to base camp, camp 1, camp 2, and so on and so forth. But it does give you a certain reminder or a checkpoint that, hey, look, in order for a customer to be successful, you would want to look up for certain characteristics of their adoption process, their onboarding and adoption process, and you want to proactively, act on it, because that's the best way of ensuring customer success. You don't want to do it at a time when perhaps it might be construed that all you're interested in is getting a renewal, right? And in which case I think that is where misperceptions might cloud the good intentions, right? So you really want to shift away from a point in time activity, which may be signing a contract or doing a renewal, to one where you're saying, okay, hey, look, 2 weeks in, has the customer done this yet? If not, then perhaps we need to then make sure that they are aware and that we get them the help that they need in order to progress, right? And like you said, right, getting from base camp to camp 1, right? If they haven't gotten to camp 1 by a certain time, then obviously that's where you might want to say, hey, look, perhaps you need help in these areas, and is there anything we can do to make sure that you're successful? Yeah.
No, I mean, I love it. I think you summed it up perfectly. Damien, I've learned quite a lot today. I really appreciate you sharing your insights. I think this is very pertinent for anyone, not only in tech, but I think anyone focusing on the customer relationship and customer success. So thank you so much for that. Final question is, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so anyone who wants to find out a little bit more or just have a chat, just connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Damien Wong, and I'm at Confluent. And I'm happy to connect and broaden networks mutually. And thanks so much, Joe, for having me on your show today.
Yeah, no worries. It's been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, I've learned quite a lot. So if you're watching this and you enjoyed today's session, please feel free to share it with your boss, your colleague, or anyone who might find it helpful. Otherwise, Damien, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Take care, guys.
Take care.